Hola community. Hola community. Welcome to BlenderToday live episode 117 or something like that. Today we have a bunch of new updates. I have a mix because you remember that last week was the big switch to Gitia, to the new system of Blender development. So today I went through what's new in Blender and I was using the mailing list. Maybe you were using it too. Blender used to, well, still has, but it's no longer active, a mailing list about just basically every change that was committed to Blender. And it even has a name from like back in the days when it used to be like a CVS system, and then SVN, then Git, and now it's no longer updated. So I was like, oh, but there's not so many news updates. Little I knew that there are actually updates. So we're gonna go through some of them, and you're gonna make me gonna help me to see if I missed any. There is a place where the updates, in case I don't know, something happens. I'm not the only one that is doing this kind of updates. Actually, if you go to the DevTalk website or the forum here upstairs, for each day, for each week, usually it's finalized like 2 hours after this episode, so it's like not one-to-one. So maybe there are a few things that get committed late in the day and I didn't cover, but you can always go and see here. So this is a spoiler of what we're gonna see on today. Just a heads up. Other than that, I think we're ready to start. I have a mix. Oh, by the way, we're streaming live like always. So if you go to Blender community, in the Today community, you are going to find a thread by Finn. Thank you, Finn. Posted a few minutes ago about the live stream from today. So where you can leave your questions, and I'm going to try to answer them as much as possible. So is everything okay? I'm following here the chat, and if I'm missing anything, let me know. I'm still doing this. It's a bit bumpy, all these updates. Okay. First, we have, well, today we have updates everywhere. You said geometry nodes, performance again, EEVEE Next even got some updates. Curve stuff for sculpting. UI changes, some that are really, some that are right-click select ideas. That's always good. And other than that, I think we just, let's start with geometry nodes. What is new in geometry nodes today? Let's into chill mode. Geometry nodes. There's a new node in the neighborhood. It's called edges to face groups node. This so again, one thing I have to still get used to with the new system is that what I'm looking at here is a pull request, like a patch. So it could happen, and actually it happened. I noticed already that the description up here, this is the first description that the developer does of the feature, and then there is like comments back and forth, all the code review going on. Sometimes it happens that by the time we are down here, the feature has changed basically. So like maybe some UI tweaks, the text maybe is not the same, and if the developer didn't remember to update the main page, I might be looking at something that is not what you're gonna get in the, like when you open Blender. So that is one thing to keep in mind. I try to look here for changes, but usually developers remember. Like Hans here, when describing this new node called edges to face groups, it's a new node that groups faces inside of a boundary edge region. So you give it some boundary, some edges as a boundary, and it gives you all the faces that are in there, edges to face groups. This is the opposite action as the existing face group boundaries. It even links to the documentation for 3.4 even. So this is like the opposite of that, where you give it a face set and it gives you boundary edges. This is the opposite. It's also the same as some of the initialize face sets option in sculpt mode, the operator in sculpt mode where you can initialize those face sets. And it explains some of the discussion going on in a thread about using the word group instead of sets. I guess this needs at some point to be unified, right? We have face maps, face groups, and face sets. So it should pick some. Okay. What is the blue light behind Pablo? That's my attempt at the rim light. It's just something to give me a rim light when because we are in that time of the year where it's okay now, but as we get closer to the end of the show, the light goes so because it's sunset. So I need some lights in the scene that are not being used yet. Although with my hat, it actually looks kind of funny because it's a bit furry. Nice. And also, you should do this kind of stuff on your renders. Rim lights are good. Okay, next. This is me just trying to make the stream nicer. Okay, so the other update is not a new node. So we're getting into the territory of new features in existing nodes. This one, it's an improvement than in the distribute points on faces node. It's now going to use the smooth normals instead of the original ones, which is going to change how your, like, it's more correct, but it's going to change how your current setups look. So if you still want the old way of like the old normals, you're going to, there's even 2 videos that are not showing embedded here, although I think Sebren already did a pull request on Git on the system, this system, so they can allow for video embeds, I think, for the video tag, and then at some point it could be attached to our system. So for now, I just need to click on the video and hope for the best. But yeah, basically the smooth normals is what you're gonna get by default without you having to do anything, without having to you manually tweak the normals. There is a setting though, not in the node itself, like when you select the node, but in the properties panel of the of this node that allows you to get the wrong old normals. And this is with the true normals. Legacy normal, so it basically is ugly versus nice, especially when you have few faces and a lot of smoothing going on, basically. Okay, this is super nice. Again, this change by Jack also mentions that in the future they intend to expose smooth normals separately as part of geometry node, so you have more control about the normals. But this is an important first step. It's also necessary to generate child hair between guide hair strands that don't have visible artifacts at face boundaries. So this is in the it's great. It's great because the new curves data block is being improved by the geometry nodes team for like hair stuff, sculpting in the future, like hair sculpting in the future. We could even have like a collision. Well, we do have some sort of collision, spoiler alert, but for physics and dynamics, hair dynamics. But also the new curve system is being improved by the Grease Pencil team, because they also, in the future, the idea is that Grease Pencil is using curves to make use of all the improvements that are happening in the curve system, including the geometry nodes. Imagine Grease Pencil with geometry nodes. Okay. The next one is an improvement in performance. Yep. The delete and separate geometry nodes, it's much faster. How much faster? Well, according to some changes, it's like around twice as fast. From the runtime of the separate geometry function went from, in a test, from 830 milliseconds to 413. So yeah, about twice as fast. Less milliseconds, that's good. More real time. The next improvement is an option. It's an option for the UI, for when you have your geometry nodes modifier, and you want to make it so other, like maybe you want to have a setting that works, that is shown in your setup, in your geometry nodes, but not in the modifier. You don't want everything to be exposed in the modifier. This change, it's in your node group, it's a toggle in the sidebar next to the height value that says hide in modifier. Allows you to keep your modifiers more tidy, especially if you're sharing them in a team. Speaking of UI in the interface, there is a setting, a new experimental setting that doesn't do anything yet, but I mention it here because you're gonna see it and then you're not gonna find what it does. So basically is a setting that in the future is going to expose specific nodes related to volumes. So it's called experimental, or like show volumes. I don't, it doesn't show here. A screenshot would be amazing, but it's open source, so we can actually go and look at what is the name of this. It's called new volume nodes. Enables visibility of the new volume nodes in the UI. I wouldn't call new because things stop being new at like the moment you add them. So I would say, yeah, like experimental volume nodes, or like, yeah, the word new stops being new the moment it's out. Okay, the next improvement is related to geometry nodes, but in the UI. The drag and drop functionality has been implemented for assets, for geometry nodes assets. So you can drag and drop from the asset browser into your objects, and it will create a modifier and assign the tree that you dragged. So yay for consistency. This is the same like a material, for example. Although drag and drop in materials, does it also, I don't have assets here, but does it also create a material slot? If you haven't, test at home please and let me know. Okay, let's talk a bit about, oh, I didn't even press the mighty pipe before. Okay, so let's switch into some rendering stuff. So, oh geez, that was loud. Please go. Okay, next. Pipe sound. Cycles. Yep, cycles. There is one optimization that Apple keeps making cycles faster on their, in this case, there is a test done on an M1 Max. The M1 Max is only on MacBook Pro, I think, right? They haven't released it on other, or maybe, I don't know, maybe on the Studio. They have the Max and the Ultra. Anyway, so on an M1 Max, with Metal RT selected, this can give render speeds up of between 15 and 20% on scenes where subsurface scattering is used a lot, such as the monster render test. I think it was done by Metin, right? So yay for that. This is much welcome addition, especially for people that use a lot of subsurface scattering. The next improvement is in EEVEE, actually. EEVEE Next, not EEVEE, EEVEE Next, because we know that EEVEE Next is the next big, or big thing. Shadows. Isn't that great? Well, I mean, shadow improvements in general, like a new virtual shadow maps, I think it's, yeah, initial implementation of virtual shadow maps. And there is even a toggle to switch them all completely. So to like change it on a general mode. Then, how is it called? Ah, yeah, it's called use shadows basically. So for example, if you don't want to have it at all, or you want to maybe do look dev that you don't necessarily need shadows, but you just want to to some quick look devs, or if you're opening a scene in a lower end system, you can also toggle that off. Shall we talk about curves? Yep, curves. So the title of this live stream is collisions. Collisions. So initial surface collisions for sculpt mode. The curves system, it's introducing a new setting, although this was supported in the old curves system, or the old particle system to do hair combing, that you could have your mesh collide. So to avoid these kind of things where you just pull your hair strands and they go through the mesh. Well, now not anymore. Now there is a setting. It's a little icon that it has like a broken chain. I don't know if that's they reusing another icon. It looks like it, right? Like a constraint. But anyway, now as you can see by the slower reaction, because collision detection while sculpting is expensive, but also you can tell how the hairs don't cross the surface anymore. Nice. I think so far there is no offset. Let's look at the files changed. If we can see some of the UI, is that it's just a one toggle and that's it. Yeah, the old system used to have an offset where you can specify how far was it. Maybe this one is just smarter, because the other one I think had the offset setting because it wasn't working really that well. But yeah, nice. Welcome addition. It's good to see some kind of collision detection physics-ish, like initial implementation. So the next change also related to curves, but this is from the other team. This is actually done by Folk. He's been working on as part of like the grease pencil team, but adding, or mainly like finishing, wrapping up the curves edit mode selection stuff. I mentioned a few last week, but now, for example, there is a box selection added, used in the box select operator. There is also lasso or lasso. How is it? Lasso or lasso? Or lasso? No, lasso sounds weird. I say lasso, but that sounds a bit too Spanish. And circle selection has been implemented, both to their respective operators. Then the select pick operator has also been added. So the View 3D select operator is now complete. And select linked, where you press L to select, but this one I mentioned it last week. Or was something else? I thought this is what I mentioned last week, but anyway, select linked. So the L key, I think. Let's look at the key map. Yep, L key. Lasso is a lasso. Looking at the chat here. Lasso. Yeah, it's a Spanish word, I think. No, we don't have double S in Spanish, or at least not that many. We have double R, double E. The next change, the next improvement, has to do with performance. So now we enter the section where like it's no longer curves, but it's a modifier. So this is well, not performance, but this is related to performance. Actually, this one, I left it here, but it was supposed to be later in the more broad Python section. Okay, so let's just go with it. Python access to modifiers execution time. This is a change that internally it's not going to show to the users unless you actually go and look for it in Python. But now if you access the modifier via Python, there is a new property called execution time, and it was going to give you a string, or like time of how long it took to calculate to evaluate that modifier. which is a nice addition to when you're debugging, when you want to know, okay, which modifier is the one that it's taking the longest time. And I wonder where should that be, because that's not exposed anywhere. On Friday at the studio, at the Blender, the weeklies that we have at the studio, Simon Thomas, he shown a little add-on he made with those debug times. I wonder if, I mean, anyone can make that add-on. It's really, now that you have the evaluation time, you probably should need to loop through and add that time. It can probably be maybe a bit expensive to calculate, so that's why it shouldn't be exposed everywhere. But where would you have it? Or should it be an add-on, like a debug add-on? Because we do have, I always see people using these modifier tools. Is it the modifier tools? That that adds, yeah, this, it's so ugly. That it adds these 4 buttons up here. Is like taking 2 rows for something that shouldn't use that much. But maybe it should be part of these add-ons because it's a modifier tool. And with a panel that is maybe collapsed by default, like debug, so you can... Or should it be a setting on each of the modifiers? Maybe it's good to see it all in one place. I don't know. What do you think? In the Amaranth add-on, I have a scene debug panel where I can like debug stuff. If there are material slots that are not being used, or node links, or how many data blocks, or... But I wonder if something like that could be done for modifiers, or where would it go? What do you think? Maybe it could be part of the modifier tools, but with a sub panel that is collapsed by default. And the UI of this, well, some of this functionality could be here at modifier, like apply and delete all, which is convenient stuff like this. Apply, and it could be here. But viewport visualization, what do you use in this mainly? I'm curious. Next. Because such a tiny add-on could be just a part of Blender. But I wonder if people use all the features or just some of the features. Okay. Continue. Slash viewport slash UI. There is a new Gizmo for tweaking the radius of spotlights and point lights. The video here is changed by Wyson. Where is it downloading it from? Okay. So basically now you can click on the circle around a point lamp or a spotlight to adjust the radius value. So you see here, it's changing. And there is even a little hack. Well, a hack. From the user point of view, it's not a hack, but from the development point of view, it is. So basically when your size is way too small, there will always be like a small gizmo that you can always drag. Otherwise, if you have 0 radius, it would mean the gizmo will be completely 0 and you wouldn't be able to click anymore. But yeah. The next change, it's related to the UI. This one, this one actually comes from right-click select. It's a proposal someone made some time ago that gives you the ability to change the theme color, or basically the color of the camera passepartout as part of the theme. This was 5 days ago, so I probably have it here. Let's see if it works. I haven't used it yet. So themes, what is it? 3D viewport maybe? Camera. It should be sorted alphabetically, I guess. Or I don't have it here. Clipping border. Or maybe my Blender is too old. 30. No, it's from today. Where did that go? This is great. My only suggestion would be to change the camera to camera passepartout color. and then it was merged. Why I don't have it? View overlay. If only we had search, right? Wouldn't that be great? And we already have search on panels, like here. I wonder if that would be too much work to make it show up. I can't find it. If you can find it, let me know. Maybe it's somewhere else. Maybe it's not in the 3D viewport. Next change. Shortcuts. Well, consistency for shortcuts. The consistency, it's on the toggle overlays shortcut, which is Alt-Shift-Z, I think. Yeah. Alt-Shift-Z. It wasn't implemented, even though there's overlays in many editors. Not all of them had the shortcut, namely the UV editor, the image editor, the sequencer didn't have the shortcut. So now they do. Now you can do Alt-Shift-Z to toggle overlays in those editors, just like you can do it in the viewport, in the 3D viewport. And speaking of things you cannot see, weird segue, the underlined shortcut was not working in some context menus. So the shortcut, that shows like the underline and shows in some of the key on the names, basically telling you which key you need to press to access that that tool or that operator. It wasn't showing up in some context menus, and now it is. So yay for that. Like the functionality would be there, just the underline wouldn't show. So that has been fixed by Leon. Thank you, Leon. And speaking of menus and settings, a change for consistency was done. Okay, this is an example of something that is a pull request. It's a change that in the description says like the proposed change, but during the review, it was proposed to have different naming for some of the things that were changed. Basically, it was a change in the naming of the horizontal and the vertical alignment settings for text, and the changes were overall good, although the proposed change was like, instead of align X and align Y, was text horizontal align and text vertical align was the proposal. However, the in the review it was proposed to just use horizontal alignment instead of text horizontal align. And because we're already in the context of text, so no need to mention text again. And also center to middle in this case. And that makes sense. But for vertical alignment, it makes sense to have middle. Like in text center is center, text middle is vertical alignment, usually like in CSS. Okay, what else? In the I think we are running into the fixes now. A performance fix when mixing CPU and GPU. This is a bit confusing one because maybe it's a bit hard to understand, because when you read this, it's like, but since a few releases in 3.0, I think, the subdivision is now GPU based, right? So why CPU? Well, there are some modifiers that are CPU, like an example here, for example, is that the subdivision happens in the GPU. However, when you do other operations such as shrink wrap, where some vertices have to look into the position of vertices in coming from another modifier, that is CPU in most cases. So in that case, you have a mix of GPU and CPU, which could affect performance quite a bit. This issue has been fixed, and it was called a serious performance hit. So you might notice a big performance improvement. Okay, this is another thing that is a bit confusing to me, because I think this was the pull request was done a long time ago. It says 6 days ago, which is when the new system was put in place. This description doesn't mention any numbers or like how much faster it is. However, if you look at the old, sorry for the blinding UI, but this is the old archive.blender.today. Maybe I can turn on Dark Reader for this website. Yeah, maybe I can do just not to be too. Maybe? Okay, cool. Yeah, so this text is the same. However, at the very bottom, there is a mention of actual numbers that we can understand. In a extreme case, in a real world demonstration of horrible performance with a blend file with a... The name of the blend file is called demo breast jiggle.blend. And I don't think I want this on my hard drive, so I'm going to remove it and I'm not going to open it on the live stream. I mean, there is many people using Blender for that. I think it's a big business. It's not going to be faster. So join the Blender development fund. Anyway, it's now going to be faster. This demo, it goes from 5 FPS to 15 FPS. So much faster. Maybe this is why it wasn't mentioned in the in the new system, but it's still in the old one. Oh yeah, and because this is baked, as in not baked as in it had way too many. This is baked as in the website is no longer editable. It was how it was back then. So maybe that's why this wasn't copied into the new system. Or regardless, it is much faster now. 5 to 15 FPS. So 3 times as fast. Welcome addition. And of course, this is not only for breast jiggling. It's for all kinds of things jiggling. Or no, basically it's something you run into all the time, right? Like a shrink wrap modifier is very common. Let's get out of this area and talk about another case where things can become slow. So I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that the BGL module, the Blender graphics library, now I don't know if that's what it stands for, but the BGL module in Python has been deprecated in favor of the GPU module. So something internal that add-on developers should be aware of, because they need to change to use the new system, which is going to be future-proof and support Vulkan and OpenGL, Metal, and all the good stuff. So old add-ons or add-ons that have not been updated to use this will print errors on the console. The thing is, if there is an add-on that updates a UI like constantly on refresh, this could print errors all the time, basically just like fail, like, or like deprecated, and this could slow down Blender a lot because of the printing that goes in the background, right, in the terminal. So that has been, if you notice that maybe using a certain add-on Blender becomes super slow, maybe it was this. So you should ask the add-on developer to update it. And also update your Blender, because you're not gonna get this slowdown anymore, because Blender, it's gonna stop showing those deprecation messages after 100 times. Like print 100 times, which happens if it's updating like 60 times per second, like it's gonna be immediate. Anyway. And that is all. Actually, I have nothing else. It was just a fun commit that I saw here by Brecht that added support for generating LTS release notes from Git. So basically from the new system, it's something internal, not user facing, except that it should be easier now to have the messages like what changed in the LTS release. So to me, it was just fun though, the interaction in this commit. So there's 21 comments. Wow, a lot of action. However, you look at this and it's like, okay, Brecht commented, he added one commit, and then it was pinging the bot. You know, BlenderBot, ping, and the BlenderBot says pong, and then it's like, hey BlenderBot, build, and the BlenderBot was like, hey, failed to verify commit access, see documentation, and then another comment, and then okay, build started, build started. I don't know, I just like the interaction of now talking to a bot. Basically, it's amazing what Brecht and other developers did in Blender now, that you're going to see how some of the commits have, well, most of the commits have, no, some have this like green ticks or red ones. Red one is that there was a build that failed. So if you click on this, you're gonna go to the build bot, the computers at the studio that are actually building Blender all the time to make sure that they run. It's just awesome to see that this is such an integration that we get from Git. It's awesome. You can see here that it's been built, and you can actually download these builds usually. Well, if they have been exposed, you probably can. But anyway, it's very interesting. You can see that it's been built for Windows, Linux, and both Apple architectures. Okay, let's see how many questions do we have. We have 10 comments, so let's go through all of them. It's a good number, round number. The changes today start with Dr. Mahesh Boyapati, or DR. Let's say doctor. Okay, doctor, how are you? You're doing okay, doctor? Not very polite for the doc. No, I'm kidding. How to create branches at what? Branches. So up to this point, I think it was talking about development. However, arteries, veins, and roots with precision using geometry nodes. I think you can ask ChatGPT this already, or maybe on YouTube, and you're gonna get some like this kind of stuff using the shortest path add-on. Not add-on, sorry, the node. But yeah, branches, roots, and veins, I guess they share a similar pattern. But yeah, try using the shortest path. There are many people have been working on doing shortest path Blender geometry. Have been making tutorials about this, so use that. The next question by Inex. Hey Inex. I hope here I can ask about the right-click select bug. Well, yeah, you are in Blender community. So I have posted an idea with a GIF from an external site, but after right-click select redesign, it stopped working. What redesign? Redesign? Last time we redesigned right-click select was like a long time ago. I tried to upload a new GIF, but I got a video processing banner for many months. So I'm brought here, but no response. What else can I do? So this from 2021 and then 2022. Maybe I can help with this, but this is a bug report, so you just need to. I mean, it sucks to ask you again to poke here, but yeah, leave a comment again, because last year, this is from January last year, and I think it was sometime last year that this website we run it together with Francesco, and for encoding the GIF or the videos, there is a service that it's like a paid service that takes care of encoding those videos with the right resolution and everything. I think back, yeah, now we're basically paying a bit more, but since then, but the old posts that didn't get to process those videos before we set that setting haven't been updated. So poke here in the issue, and then we're gonna try to make it reprocess. At some point we're thinking, by the way, there are some updates that we are planning on this website. I think it worked well as an experiment, but there are a few things that we're considering for this year. I think the most popular website for, like, the most popular community right here is right click select. So that can become its own community, and all the other websites, like the other, like Blender.Today, we have a Discord server for it. Blender.Today, we mainly only use it for like sharing YouTube tutorials. We get a lot of spam, and I don't know if it's really that useful anymore as a news outlet. So we use it for this, but I could basically just ask you questions in the chat, or, you know. So I don't know. Maybe we could build something else. Graphical hasn't, like, with the buildbot now that everybody can have their pull request and build with the buildbot, I think it's much more convenient and more secure to have graphical separate and just like retire graphical, because this place, it was good while it lasted. I helped build this website in 2005. Graphical is older than Blender Nation, not a Blender Artist, but when Blender Artist had a different name. Really old. It's not very safe because people can share builds that, yeah, they're binary. They can have anything. So I wouldn't, yeah. Anyway, we're thinking of retiring some of the websites here and make it clearer. Just make right click select and then work on right click select, making better. There's one thing I want to do in right click select, which is having the concept of a draft or a public draft for a proposal, because it happens sometimes that people write proposals and there is a, I don't know, a typo or something, that all the comments are about that one thing, that little thing, and then the rest of the proposal gets thrown away or doesn't get updated, so it doesn't have like a second chance. In that case, I think having like a staging place for proposals where people can give feedback, and then once everything is polished and there's screenshots and maybe a feature already exists, and then people can say, okay, proposal, and then go to publish to the already more curated list of proposals. And then the comments get reset, the points get reset, and, you know, like a new fresh start. So that way developers can look at that list, which should be a bit more clear, as in more curated. You know that what is in there is good quality and it's not just like some random things. Maybe it could even the community be like, okay, this is worth of a proposal, and then, you know, like a filter for what gets proposed. I don't know, maybe. And also, should right click select become like a Blender product? It's not something I decide, of course, at all. This will have to be proposed to the developers, but I kind of like the community aspect of it, that is more independent. Anyway, I got a bit carried away there. Will there be something like, hello Blend creator, how are you? How is it going? How was your weekend? Will there be something like a velocity control for animation like here? Velocity control. So this is a screenshot of another software. I have a suggestion for Blender to bring a feature from After Effects, keyframe velocity. Currently in Blender, when creating animations, I find myself having to estimate the velocity of my keyframes by eye. This can lead by inconsistent results. What do you mean? Velocity, like what? It's not something you can do with the graph editor. In After Effects, I'm able to quickly and accurately specify the incoming and outgoing velocity of a... What do you mean? Incoming velocity of a keyframe? Like how fast the value arrives? This is a graph editor, or not? By tipping a percentage instead of relying on visual estimates. This would improve my workflow and consistency for... Isn't this... Sorry, to me it looks like a graph editor or something that you could do with a graph editor for a keyframe. I mean like the spacing, the timing. Or maybe it's like multiple keyframes, that how fast do you get to that? Anyway, I need more context or see it in action. how it compares to a to something that is already in Blender, and where would that be? When making a proposal, it's always also good to maybe show it's like, okay, I think it should be in this panel, in this setting, or this shortcut, to make it similar to another existing feature. TMMC says, hey Pablo, have you tested the VDM sculpting patch by Robin Huntspen? It's on the builder. It seems that we could have it in master in the next hours. No way. Robin Huntspen is still open, so it's not here yet. But vector displacement for the sculpting draw brush. Okay, this is kind of groundbreaking news. But who is... I mean, this is amazing if it happens. Look at all the excitement. Is it... How... It's even inspired by right-click select. VDM 2 weeks ago. Oh, look at this well-written proposal with images and pictures and links and resolution options, and this is, and it's even been updated over time. When was the first posted? In January, and then edited. But why is it edit 2021? Maybe it's copied from somewhere else. 80 upvotes. It is amazing. It is a good example of a good proposal. I mean, let's see. Changes approved by Julian Kasper, artist from the Sculpt module, and changes approved by Jeroen Bakker, developer. And it was added by Brecht, so people seem to... Oh my gosh. So it could be happening. Code-wise seems fine. I need to investigate the Apple issue, so some platform problems. Oh my gosh. If this happens... Oh my god, we... On Wednesday, so 2 days from now, is a beta of 3.5. So if this makes it to 3.5, that's gonna be kind of huge. Because 3.5 so far has many updates, but the big thing is the real-time compositor. This would steal the show from the real-time. No, it's not stealing. It's just more features. And also, Sculpt doesn't have new features in so long that this would be much welcome. Oh no, there's someone doorbell ringing. Okay. I'm excited about this change. Let's see the next one. Hola Pablo, says Prince of Sloth. You know how the Blender export menu does not show which export preset is selected? Yeah, that's a problem with all the export menu. Also because export menu is actually a... Well, export menu does not show which export preset is selected. Yeah, that's a problem with all the presets, unfortunately. I wish the box displayed the selected preset because it's very confusing as design is not consistent with other drop-down menus in Blender. Yeah, that's because it's not a drop-down menu. It looks like a drop-down menu, but it's a list of operators. It's so bad. I made a mock-up to make it easy to understand at the end of this bug report. My custom preset. Yeah, this unfortunately it's a problem that exists with everywhere in Blender. Like not only there, but like these kind of presets. Like you change the theme to something else, and then it's no longer this, right? It should say like custom, like it's now a new thing. It's no longer Maya, right? Because yeah. But also reset, and then this still says Maya. It's not really Maya. And like this so much. like exports. You said, well, now we don't have the label here anymore, but if you set it to be something, then you're just basically internally you're applying a modifier, an operator that sets some of the settings for this, but it's really not guaranteeing in any way that it's not changing things outside of that preset. It's not great, unfortunately. Oh, this is dynamically updated now. That's cool. 120. And when it's not custom, the UI here could be improved, right? It doesn't need to say custom something. It could be just the FPS, just like here, and then custom. Anyway, yeah, unfortunately, that's an issue with all the doorbell again. That's the perks of streaming from home. I hope it's not wrong using Blender Live to highlight open big reports, open bug reports. No, it's not. It's not bad actually. We are aware of this. The problem is that it needs a complete restructure of Blender's preset system, and that is kind of a big task. The same reason, like, I think everybody agrees that it would be great to just like drag and drop an FBX file and have it Blender open it, right? Like the same way you drag and drop a blend file. It would be great to have, you know, detect other stuff. But then you look at the code, and the code is actually looking for an icon type in order to do, like, this is an image, this is a file, this is a whatever other, like a video. It's using the icon, which is a terrible way, because if FBX doesn't have its own icon inside of Blender, so you cannot be detected. So the whole drag and drop system for files detection should be based on extension, at least, right? Or in mime type, not in icons inside of Blender. So that is, yeah, that's one of the things that until you look at the code, then you don't understand why something so simple it's done that way. The next question. Hello, Pablo. Will there be an overhaul to object types, since with geometry nodes an object can be curved points and mesh? Actually, this was discussed at some point, and the answer was that it's something that could be tackled in the future. It's not a small project, but yeah, basically having an object be like fluid, right? Not fluid as in physics, but like a gender fluid for objects, applied to objects in Blender. Like a geometry object, can be any kind of geometry, or even multiple geometry types, right? Because an object can be curve points, volume mesh, or everything at once, right? So yeah. Next, Blend Creator. Hi Pablo, do you know if there will be a first showcase or beta of EEVEE Next? EEVEE Next, it's inside of Blender already, so you can try it any time. You just need to enable it from the preferences, experimental, which only shows up once you have developer extras on, and then turn on EEVEE Next. You need to close Blender and start it again, and it's going to show up here in this list. There's no plan, like specific release for it. The release of, or like the inclusion of EEVEE Next replacing EEVEE is tied to the implementation of or the upgrade of the whole rendering, like EEVEE, Workbench, Vulkan, OpenGL, all Metal, all of that stuff. So it's kind of it's a big project that it's all coming. I think by the end of the year we should already have something that it's like all teams working together to like do Vulkan and do more EEVEE Next, Metal, all coming together. I think Blender 4 is gonna be kind of a beast. The next question by Vortex. which is a Blender Studio subscriber. Hey, I'm wondering why don't we have an option, the option to search for modifiers like the search option in node graphs. I have to use an add-on called Modifier List. Actually, this feature there was a patch by Hans that made it like so you can right click here and it would be like add for the modifiers, and it was amazing. I'm a bit sad that it didn't get added because it would be pretty neat. And also this thing, even though it is convenient once you know, but I'm always like, it's like, okay, displays, where is displays? Okay, it's with D. And this is all sorted alphabetically, so it's D, and it's D, D, D. Not in this one because the first column to me has always been the weird one because it was added recently, as in, well, a long time ago, but to me it was more recent. And so it's like, okay, no, D, no, displays, there you go. And the same with subdivision. Okay, subdivision, S, must be at the bottom. Where? It's somewhere here. This should be a search already. It should be like this menu. And this should be just you could do like Shift A or right click, Shift A here, and you can open a search with like a, would be awesome. Awesome. Also Shift A here collapse everything. It could be add object. Why not can't we just add objects from here? That would be neat. Anyway. And what is this? It is an add-on that adds a search. Ew, look at that. Ugly. Is it panel? Oh no. Ah, these are like the most used ones, I guess. Is it probably learning which ones you use most? And then it makes a UI list, which is a good idea, but not with so many buttons. It's a bit overwhelming. And it's you see one modifier at a time. But also using like the modifier icon. What is it for search? Then should be the search icon. Anyway, I haven't used this add-on, so I'm not sure. But search we should have for sure. For search. Finn says, hello Pablo, hope you're having a nice day. I am. There has been many discussions, but is there anything planned or in development regarding color spaces? I know AGX is on the way, but especially having filmmaking compositing is difficult and there is an endless discussion about ACES CG not coming to any conclusion. There are user-made configs, but officially implemented transforms and more flexible options separate from rendering and compositing would be awesome. I agree. It would be amazing to have something like that, but I don't know any user that is leading that discussion other than AGX by Troy. But other than that, I think every project like that, every proposal like that needs someone to, okay, I'm going to make sure that there is documentation, that there is an option, or that it's default. But if there is a default, then it should be like version controlled, right? If it's not compatible with previous older versions of Filmic, then it should be in 4.0 or in a big release of Blender, right? Should be planned. I think in the past, some of the discussion around changing the default, like Filmic with something else, was that it was hard to make it backwards compatible. In that case, you have to wait for a big release, and it wasn't done in 3.0 because there were other priorities. I think the team that could work on that in 3.0 was working on Cycles X, which I would much rather have Cycles X than color space stuff. But yeah, it's a trade-off, like who's working on color spaces and who in the community is leading that discussion, and what is the way to go. I think with color spaces, unfortunately, there's so many options that that it's hard to agree with one. Bone Studio in the chat said, hey, there is a big conversation about ACES and implementation of an open color IO configuration panel, but we need a developer joining the discussion. I think it reached a common ground on DevTalk. Wow, promising. And with this, I'm done with the questions. So let's look at it. Where is it? Blender support for ACES. It started in June 2020, 5 hours ago. There is some discussions going on. Some with like shouting and a lack of paragraphs. If there is a conclusion of all that, I think you should highlight it as such. It's like make 2 years of a thread discussion. I think no one can follow something like that. So if you all have come to a conclusion, make a proposal, I would say, and make a new thread where this is the proposed the example. What happens to all files? What happens to new files? What is the default for rendering, for settings, for what happens to filmic? When could this be introduced? Blender 4.0 maybe. There is room for cleaning up 2 years of discussion over here. But other than that, I think I'm gonna call it, because it's been a while. It's been 1 hour, over an hour, and I think I ran out of questions in the thread at the moment I opened it. Sorry if I didn't get to answer your question, but we're gonna have more of this goodness next year about the same time. Next year? What? Next year? Next week? Sorry, it's not the end of the month, the year yet. The next week is the 20th. And it should be, 20th should be okay. Next week, I think we're gonna have Blender 3.5 beta and Blender 3.6 alpha. What year is it? Yeah, next year. No, next year we're gonna, at this time next year, I think we're gonna have Blender 4.0 alpha. It's not crazy. But okay, I'm jumping ahead of development. 3.5 beta on Wednesday, I think. If nothing has changed, I think we should be seeing 3.5 beta with the release of, or like the unveil of the splash screen, which is no spoilers, but it should be very warm and fuzzy feelings for the part of the world that is in winter at the moment. Other than that, I think I'm going to be wrapping it up and calling it a day. So thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you had a good time. I hope you have a great week ahead. And I'm going to be calling it. See you next week. Same place, same time for another episode of Blender.Today live. Bye-bye. Not even that loud.